The biggest unfair advantage in business isn't money, talent, or connections. It's how fast you operate. I know this firsthand. I did over 850 million in online sales, not because I was the smartest or had the best network, but because I moved quicker than almost everyone around me. The fastest companies win because they make more decisions, test more ideas, and learn quicker than everyone else. During COVID, I learned this lesson the hard way. Our family furniture business relied on weekend warehouse events. We'd have thousands of people lining up to get bargain deals in a warehouse. And overnight, due to lockdown restrictions, it was completely gone. Instead of waiting for things to reopen, I drove down to the warehouse, took photos of every single piece of furniture in the warehouse, built a Shopify store over the weekend, and by Monday, we were selling online. That fast pivot didn't just save the business, it turned into a 7-figure sale of the business later on. It completely changed the business model into an online business. That's when it clicked for me. Speed creates opportunity. Whether you're building a brand, a career, or trying to change your life, speed is the one advantage that you can actually control. The faster you act, the faster life gives you feedback. By the end of this video, you'll know the exact levers that drive speed and how to use them to turn years of growth into months. Because if you don't, someone else will. Most people in business move slowly because it feels safer. You make fewer mistakes, there's less chaos, and it gives you the illusion of control. But here's the truth. Those mistakes you're avoiding are actually the feature, not a bug. Every wrong turn gives you data. Every imperfect launch gives you feedback. The only way to learn what works is to see what doesn't. You find it by doing the work and seeing what actually happens. Another time I've learned this firsthand is when I started a wearable blanket business called The Hoodie. Everyone around me told me to slow down, focus on one marketing channel, and master this marketing channel before expanding. It's what every course, every expert, every agency was telling me. But my product was trending fast, faster than anyone that I knew at the time. And I knew timing mattered more than perfection. So instead of waiting 6 months to carefully roll out a Pinterest, TikTok, and Snapchat strategy, I launched all 3 in a single week. No chatting to agencies, no long strategy decks, no approval chains. I just logged into the platforms. I didn't even know how to use them, signed up, watched a couple of YouTube videos, and launched. I wasn't an expert in any of these platforms, but I knew one thing. When demand is exploding, timing and volume matter more than precision. And they did. Tested a pile of fast, rough ads and let volume find the winner. Within days, sales exploded. What could have taken half a year of planning, testing, and overthinking happened in a matter of days. And that speed alone made me millions. And after all that, what I learned was action creates information. That's the first step. Reframe speed as the safer option. The faster you move, the faster you learn. You stop guessing and start discovering. The business that moves quickly gets more customer data, more reactions, and way more feedback loops, while slower businesses are still holding the internal meetings discussing what might work. If you've ever thought to yourself, I'll start once everything is ready, understand this. Things will never be ready. There's always going to be a reason to wait, and waiting kills momentum. So use this lens when you're feeling like you're hesitating. Am I avoiding a mistake or avoiding information? If I shipped something small today, what would I learn by tomorrow or next week? And what will be more expensive, a small fast error now or 6 weeks of delay? Once I treated mistakes as paid research, everything got easier. We launched more, learned faster, and stacked wins. So if you take one thing from this step, make sure it's this. Moving slow feels safe, but it's the most dangerous place in business. So let's say you run an online store. You're scared to spend $200 testing Facebook ads, maybe because you're worried that you might waste money, which is just not true. So you hold for 6 months. During that time, a competitor launches ads, learns what works, and then they can scale to $50,000 months. By the time you finally start, ad costs have doubled because there's a competitor in your space and they own your audience. Your hesitation didn't prevent a mistake. It turned a small, fixable learning moment into a much more expensive mistake. Once you see that clarity, speed stops feeling risky and starts feeling necessary. Now, before I go on, I need to remember to let everyone know that we have launched Daily Mentor Academy, which has no minimum revenue requirements to join. You can get weekly mentoring from our coaches and hundreds of hours of elite content. So click the link below to apply. All right, back to it. So if the first step is about reframing speed as a learning strategy, then step 2 is about building the muscle that makes it possible, which is decision velocity. A lot of people think that the smartest, most successful founders just make better decisions than everyone. They don't. They just make more decisions. and they operate with what I like to refer to as the 80% rule in decision making. The 80% rule states that once you're roughly 80% confident in a decision, like you have the data, stop researching and move. The final 20% of certainty takes way too much time to find, and you'll usually lose more by waiting rather than acting and adjusting later. The fastest, most successful people out there know that speed is a skill you train, not a trait that you're born with. Every time you wait for perfect information, you rob yourself of the opportunity. When I launched my first ecom business, Calming Blankets, which made over 10 million in its first year, I had my first Oodie sample as well, my wearable blanket business, sitting on my desk. I had no proof that it would sell. No guarantee I could even afford to launch the Oodie because Calming Blankets was doing so well and absorbing so much cash. On paper, I know it looked irresponsible to juggle both, but I knew waiting for clarity meant waiting for and watching the opportunity pass. So I made the call. I ordered both containers. It was actually smaller than a container. It was a batch of Oodies. I launched both and I let reality and the consumer demand tell me which would win to create information. That one decision gave me real results within a week, not theory or ideas, but actual numbers that I could actually go on. Plans and predictions would have never given me that level of certainty. The only way to know was to move and see the outcome. It doesn't matter if it's a new product, a project that you're working on, or a skill that you're trying to learn. Real progress comes from feedback, not theory. The other thing to know is most decisions aren't permanent. Jeff Bezos has a really good framework of, is this a one-way door or a two-way door? Because if it's a two-way door, you can obviously walk back through it if it's wrong. That mindset alone can allow you to make these decisions way faster, knowing that you can always go back if it's a two-way door. So try asking yourself these simple questions. What's the minimum information I actually need to act? Secondly, what's the worst thing that can happen if I'm wrong? And thirdly, what's my cutoff time in time or money before I stop or double down? So as I've reiterated, you should be less afraid of making a mistake and more afraid of standing still. However, the moment that you start moving really fast, a new challenge hits. Suddenly, things that used to flow start clogging up. Sometimes it's not even the side effect of losing focus. It's the side effect of growth. As you scale, new layers, people, processes, they quietly creep in. And before you know it, the speed that got you here is the thing that starts slipping away. More products, more people, more processes. Suddenly the things that used to take a day now take 3. The next step is about fixing that, staying fast by keeping things simple. Here's something that you need to understand. Speed doesn't just come from making quick decisions. It comes from deliberately stripping away everything that slows you down. The best operators are ruthless about cutting friction. They constantly challenge what's necessary, delete what isn't, and then simplify what remains. There's nobody better than this than Elon Musk. And if we look at his framework, it's going to give you 5 practical actions that you can apply right now to strip away friction and regain momentum. Firstly is challenge every step. Don't assume that something needs to exist just because it always has. Every approval, meeting, or task should have a reason for being there. If nobody can explain why it matters, it probably doesn't. When I say that they need to explain why it matters, I mean they really have to show and create proof about why it exists. Next, we've got cut what's unnecessary. So once we've spotted and actually analyzed every single step that provides no value, remove it completely. The fastest teams aren't those who do more, they're the ones who have removed everything that doesn't matter. Then you want to tighten what's left. So simplify communication, shrink timelines, shorten feedback loops. Every process can be faster if it's cleaner. We then want to push the pace. After you've simplified all of these things, set tighter deadlines. Most projects expand to fill time if you give them. So challenge your teams every single day to compress timelines from months into weeks into days. And then finally, once you've done all of that, systemize it once it's clean. And this includes automation and scaling. You never want to scale an inefficient process or system. It just multiplies the drag. So to reiterate, this is the rhythm of simplicity. Challenge, cut, tighten, push, and systemize or automate. I use this exact system when building the ad creation process for the Oodie, my wearable blanket business. Most teams overcomplicate everything. They have a strategist that comes up with the idea, or maybe it's the founder. They send it to a videographer. Then this videographer might edit it themselves or send it even to an editor. Then it goes on to a media buyer. And by the time it goes live, nobody really has seen the whole process. Nobody reports the feedback loop and how it goes. Nobody's even thinking about how the process can be improved. So in the early days, I completely flipped it to allow speed. We hired people that could do it all. They understood trends, could shoot the content, edit it, and upload it themselves. What used to take a week or 2 weeks to get an ad live started to be live within a day. We could come up with an angle and then it would be in the ad account that night. That's the power of simplicity. It's not about working harder or faster. It's about cutting down the steps that slow you down, which is sometimes communication and more team members. When your systems are clear and direct and everyone knows what they need to do and who owns every single step of the way, that confidence builds the real speed. Complexity causes hesitation, simplicity removes it and keeps momentum moving forward. So let's ask yourself now, what's slowing you down that actually doesn't make a difference, or what isn't actually high leverage? It could be useless meetings, approval steps, reports that nobody actually reads. Every layer that you can remove from these gives you speed. Now here's the catch. Everything I've just taught you about speed is useless if you can't sustain it. Anyone can move fast for a while, but if you can't control it, you'll burn out, break systems, and you'll lose focus. This next step is all about learning to keep your speed without spinning out. Once you've learned how to move fast, make quick decisions, and cut the clutter, you'll start noticing something else. Everything around you begins to change faster too. It could be a shift in the market, or opportunities start popping up bigger, or even a crisis that you didn't plan for. These moments test whether you can keep your momentum without losing control. You'll see most people either freeze or overthink or rush into things without focus. The truth is, real speed is you need the ability to stay calm under pressure and move quickly, but with direction. I learned this lesson the hard way. I used to push flat out, 12-hour days, constant pressure, never slowing down. And for a while, it definitely worked. But eventually, I started having panic attacks. And when I finally went to a psychologist, their advice was just stop working. So I did. For months, I worked 2 or 3 hours a day. For the first time, my baseline stress actually started to reset. It made me realize that I wasn't fast because I was working more hours. I was fast because I was sharp. And I'd lost that edge by burning myself out. And I started doing way less hours because I burnt myself out. So all of those benefits of speed and those long hours normalized, because there's a balance to speed. You can't go flat out forever. True momentum comes from knowing when to push and when to pull back, because both matter if you want to stay fast for years, not just months. If you're struggling with any of this, make sure that you drop in the comments. I'd love to hear how you've handled burnout. Now, when everything feels uncertain, you need to simplify the problem. Pick a direction and go all in until it's solved. But the truth is, you can't sprint like that forever. If you found this helpful, hit subscribe, because I'm sharing everything that I've learned building an $850 million brand. And these videos are just the start. And make sure you go check out Daily Mentor if you like e-commerce or you already have an e-commerce brand. We're going to help you with a ton of coaches. Peace.